These are the laminated task cards that would have been in the classroom for group work if things didn't get messed up with the first test. So I just want to go through each of the 4 stations and kind of give you some key information as to what you need to focus on. Tomorrow for the research stations quiz, please note that we will be going over all of the questions from each of the stations. Not all of the questions, but a few of the questions from each of the stations to make sure that you're up on top of the information. Okay, so for station 1, you want to look at these ethical scenarios. There's, I think, 3 of them. And you want to take a look at the pictures that I used to aid you into what it is that you are going to explain. Now, this station is all about using your new vocabulary when it comes to ethics. So, when it comes to ethics, the things that you should be concerned most about are 3 following things. Informed consent, right? When you do a study, you want to give people informed consent that you are going to be doing an experiment. They are your subjects, and in order to do the study correctly, you need to make sure they sign a piece of paper saying that they're willing participants, okay, and they are able to drop out of the study at any given time. They should feel no pressure whatsoever to do your study unless they fully and wholly want to. Okay, the other word that you learned was confidentiality. When you publish your results, you want to make sure that while the people are alive and living, that you use anonymous, either initials or completely different names for the people that were willing to participate in your subject. As a subject for you, you want to make sure that they are unidentifiable for when you publish it in magazines and journals, right? The hope of doing an experiment and doing research is so that you can do something for mankind and learn something about the human experience that's worth publishing in a magazine or in an education journal, right? So you want to make sure you're keeping your subjects confidential. And the third thing is that children cannot give informed consent. So the parent will give you some kind of signed document that allows you to use their child in an experiment. But during the experiment, you will have to make sure you touch base with the kid all the way throughout and make sure they're okay and not freaked out and not crying and not afraid of anything that you're asking or doing or saying. Okay, so you're going to, every question that you ask the kid or everything you ask them to do, you check in with the child and make sure that they're A-okay with everything that's going on. If they aren't, you have to give them an opportunity to talk to their parents and to, if they want to, leave the experiment with their parents at any given time. In the last word for ethics is debriefing. If you were able to do the experiment and used any kind of limited deception, right, you had to use trickery or deceive your subjects in order to get them to answer honestly, during the debriefing session, you would let them know what it was you were measuring, what the topic was that you were studying, and why you had to trick them or lie to them in order to get them to participate in the study. Okay, and after all 3 of those things are done, if they still want to be dropped out of the study because now they feel stupid for getting something wrong or answering the wrong way or whatever, they're allowed to drop out of the study. You allow them to withdraw their informed consent if they have changed their mind about wanting to be part of it now that you've let them know that you deceived them in some way. Okay? Deceived them. The second station is all about operational definitions practice. Remember things like happiness and things like aggression or things like work or things like athletic performance or, in this case, the functioning of the brain right? All of these types of things are your variables when you do an experiment, right? So when you're doing an experiment, you have to be able to operationally define unmeasurable things. So you have to use your words to be very precise in explaining what it is that you're measuring. Every study has two variables, right? You're going to make sure that whatever those variables, whatever the control group is, or whatever the dependent or independent variable is, that you define it exactly and precisely. Remember what we did with the smile, how we operationally defined a smile as turning up of the lips, white of the teeth showing, squinting of the eyes, and any kind of amount of tooth showing. We would count with our little check mark as we're recording our answers of our people in our study. Whatever it is we're measuring, we put a little check. Okay, so all the variables have to be defined operationally. Think of it like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. The order of operations in a mathematical equation, make sure that you have some kind of operational definition for psychology, right? The order that you do things in, what you're going to say each thing means. For the third station, you're going to make sure that you practice correlations, okay? These are the two variables that I talked about for about 20 minutes in the research methods video, right? So remember, use your fingers. If the two variables go up together, if both of them move in the same direction, up or down, it's a positive slope. If both of them move upwards or downwards, it's a positive slope. If one goes up and one goes down, it's a negative slope. It's the coefficient number, the math, that tells you the strength of the relationship, right? The number tells you the strength, not the negative or the positive. The negative and the positive just tell you the direction of the slope. So you want to use your fingers and you want to draw little arrows over the two variables when you look at these examples here, right? The more rooms a person has in their house, right, that's going up. So you would use the blue arrow for that one. Put a little arrow over the more rooms, the more pairs of shoes they are likely to own. So it would be 2 upwards, right? But they don't have anything to do with each other. So one is going up, the other one's going up. It's a positive slope. You have to tell the direction of the slope. And then a possible third variable is what could account for the fact that these two are correlated, right? We know common sense-wise, the more rooms a person has, the more pairs of shoes they are likely to own. Probably don't really have anything to do with each other. Yet both of them are moving up on your invisible graph. So a possible third variable could be what? I don't know. Say a lot of people are visiting in the house at that moment and there's tons of shoes laying around because there's a lot of people living in the house. Okay? The people that are visiting you are spread all over the house and they all brought several pairs of shoes with them. That's the possible third variable. You have to read each of the questions and decide which of the variables is going up and which of the variables are going down. So you're going to put a little arrow over each of the variables in the question. Then you're going to tell me the direction of the slope. Once you figure out the direction of the slope and whether or not there's a strong correlation, then you're going to put a possible third variable. For the first one, for example, you would put the more rooms a person has in their house, right? So that would be a upward arrow. The more pair of shoes they are likely to own. That's also an upward arrow. So we know with 2 arrows going up, the direction is a positive slope. Positive slope. A possible third variable to explain the correlation right? It's an odd pairing of variables. Why would the more rooms you have anything to do with the shoes that you're likely to own? Perhaps the people are having a lot of company and people are visiting, so there are shoes all over the place. Perhaps because the person does have so much money to buy a big, beautiful house, they really do have enough money to buy as many pairs of shoes as they wish. Okay, so it could be money, it could be the fact that they have visitors, whatever the possibility of the third variable might be, you want to explain it. Okay, I'll do one more. The more class days students miss, the lower their grades are likely to be. So the more that they miss, that's going upwards, right? Upwards. The lower their grades are going to be. So that one's going down. When you have an up and a down, we have a negative slope, always. If one is negative and one is down and one is up, it's a negative slope. The possible third variable here, the more class days students miss, the lower their grades are likely to be. Well, maybe in the same direction are a positive slope. Two variables going down, positive slope. One or the other, negative slope. Okay, so once you are looking at the coefficient, you're looking at the numbers and the direction of the slope. So a positive correlation, when two things are both going up or down in the same direction, has an upward slope, positive. Okay, whether it's going up or both variables are going down, there's a positive upward slope. If one is going up and one is going down, it's a negative correlation, right? So a downward slope. When all over the place and there's no line of best fit, there's perfect zero, no correlation, no pattern, right? You can tell just by looking at it that this is like a 0.8, okay? Or you can look at the number line, right? A positive number and a negative number are both the same strength, right? The closer the number is to 0, the weaker the number, whether it's negative or positive. The first section, you read through each research study and identify the research method being used. Be as specific as possible. So, for example, the first one, participants were asked to answer a number of questions about their study habits. That's a survey. The answers to those questions and participants' GPAs were examined for patterns. The researchers found a strong correlation between the number of hours spent on social media and the lower the GPA. Right? So that would be a survey. Right? You would find correlational information based on a questionnaire. That's it. For the second part, it says, which research method would you use to answer the following psychological questions? Explain why you would choose that method. How can we improve student motivation? Okay, for that one, you're going to use the applying psychology's perspective to real-world topics, or what you learned by taking the quiz today. Try to do it on your own at first, but if you want to kind of look over the chart, the bonus chart, that will help you to really understand which perspective is being used in each of the examples. Let's do one together. How can we improve student motivation? Okay, behavioralists are concerned with motivation and student behavior, right? We want to look at what motivates a person based on the rewards and punishments that they get for doing well in school or not well in school, right? What are the rewards and punishments? What are the rewards that motivate kids to do well? And what are the behavior modifications or punishments or discipline that we use to shape and mold the bad behavior of doing not well, right? That would be the behavioralist. Students are motivated for the rewards they get when they do well in school, even if it's a smiley face or a gold star or a smile from the teacher, or your parents get you, give you your allowance if you got good grades, or let you stay out a little bit later, right? There's always a reward or a punishment when it comes to behavioral, and behaviorists are interested in motivation. What motivates a person to behave or not behave. Okay, that's it. Right, that would be the behavioralist. Okay, and the way that you would find that, this has to do with intelligence, right? It's about learning because it's a student. So you would go to the chart, the bonus chart that's in the video that you copied by hand if you want the extra point, and you would look up under intelligence and learning the behavioral perspective, right? How might an educational system be designed to encourage effective learning? What rewards are most effective in promoting learning? What discipline measures are most effective in curbing inappropriate behaviors or bad grades? Okay, so what are the rewards and punishments? What are the rewards that motivate kids to do well? And what are the behavior modifications or punishments or discipline that we use to shape and mold the bad behavior of doing not well? You're going to practice that by using the chart, and by the time you're done with all of them, you'll be all set for tomorrow's test. Okay, have a good night, everybody. I wish you luck. Night, night.